from maybe being on opposite sides of the spectrum to like crossing over, finding balance.
Yeah, that's been our journey.
Share more about that.
Yeah.
This has been our journey.
Hi, beautiful beings. I'm Brittany.
And I'm Bridgette.
Today we're going to be sharing about our relationship
update.
A relationship update.
It's been a while.
We've been sharing about this topic a lot recently.
Just like with friends in the world. It's feeling alive.
We've had a really wild journey. Maybe you followed our podcast and heard us sort of talking about like mono-poly dynamics. So I think we want to talk a little bit about definitely about us, but also about like monogamy and polyamory and kind of like our journey in the realms.
And what those words can mean and how they mean different things, maybe to different people.
For sure. Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think what people actually want, or like what we want.
Yeah.
And what is feeling alive now.
Our perspective, but just kind of a truth, a collective truth that we've come to.
Yeah.
Over the years, from maybe being on opposite sides of the spectrum to like crossing over, finding balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's been our journey.
Share more about that.
Yeah.
This has been our journey. Brittany's over here, I'm over here, and then we're like, oh, wait, okay.
Hi, this is nice.
Which has helped us learn so much from so many different perspectives and angles and ways we can relate to each other and the world and maybe what other individuals are going through, and we've learned a lot.
Yeah, so we're about to celebrate 5 years of partnership, connection with each other. And when we began our partnership, I was in another partnership. And so I was very much
pregnant.
I was pregnant. I had a partner and like long-term immersed in polyamory for like 5 years at that time. And Bridgette really like blew my world upside down.
That's what I do. Because
it was such a yes, but it was like right from the beginning, I was like, how is this gonna work?
Yeah.
And my perception of you at that time was that, well, like on our first time connecting, our first date together, what I heard from you was like that you kind of dipped your toe into polyamory and it didn't feel resonant for you.
I'll share a little context before you keep going, if that feels cool.
Yeah, so yes, please.
Mm-hmm. So right before I met Brittany, I had been for 2 years me and my last partner had separated, and so for 2 years I had been just with myself. I wasn't really dating. I was getting clear on what I wanted, and I was feeling very clear around what felt good and what I was calling in. And then
Enter
Brittany.
Yes.
Who was kind of like, I was like, whoa, that's a lot of stuff that didn't seem like what I wanted at that time. But it was just the pole of attraction was so grand that we said yes.
Right. And so when Bridgette said that, you know, like I heard this like, oh, like I don't think I'm into poly, like what happened in my system at that time, because we were having such an epic connection, as I was like, okay, like no problem. I love this being already. I just want to be connected to you. I just felt like, cool, like I'm open to what this looks like and just enjoying like the deliciousness of our connection, just feeling like we could do so many things with that.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that date, you took my hand and you said, I have a really big crush on you. And I was like, shoot, me too. And like we ended up just going all in. And one of my stories at the time, so stories I think are a powerful theme here, is like nobody is any one identity and we're always changing, but we can attach stories to things we've heard or things that we think, and then we find data in the world that confirms those stories. So I felt I perceived that you didn't like that I was polyamorous. Or like the situation didn't feel very resonant or easy, which I would agree. Like there were a lot of challenges and a lot of things that were misaligned. Like mine and Connor's partnership got to be totally reinvented, and our relationship to one another got to be totally reinvented because of all that we went through, all of us. So there was a lot of truth there, but there were parts of me that had felt so connected with freedom and like the idea of relationship anarchy in being rooted in truly being ourselves and just feeling free to express and explore in the world.
Yes.
And I developed a fear that you didn't want me to be doing that. And an idea that like I couldn't meet you in partnership in the way that you wanted this life. And it was so hard but then, you know, outside of that, it was like, but this works so well. And this feels so right. But when we got into those conversations or something would come up around it, I would always just feel confused. So that was like the beginning of the journey for me. And when the switch started happening for me, when I was like, I really want to be with Bridgette, and like when I started to like get over my stubbornness and feel like if I don't shift, like this person might not be here anymore. And I started feeling, what would it be like if I embraced, like all of this going on in my mind, what would it be like if I embraced the idea of like conscious monogamy with this being?
Wow.
So that was my process while you were having another process. Yeah.
Totally. So I'll share a little bit about my process. And also, like, you said this thing, like, you had the story around maybe, like, what you perceived I was thinking polyamory was, or, like, pushing that away or not wanting that. And for me, it was never about, and I guess I said that, right? Like, polyamory wasn't for me.
I hate polyamory.
Yeah.
And also, I heard from you and knew at those times it was, like, the flavor you were experiencing of it didn't feel resonant.
And I think that's the thing, is it was complicated and messy, and I had spent all of these years really feeling grounded and nourished within myself and feeling really like clear on what I wanted. So it was like elements of polyamory resonated with me, like autonomy and freedom and independence, but the chaos of it was really challenging for me. But because I said yes to that, it expanded me. And it blew me open, right? Like there was so much I got to learn to use my voice and know my needs and how to share them. And also how to support you, right? How to support another being, even though I was triggered. And wanting those needs to be met by Brittany, right? Like wanting to have time with you, feel safe with you, build a foundation with you, feel like I was important to you. All of these things were super important to me, and they weren't always consistently being met. And so I learned to really take care of myself, and gained a lot of skills and independence. And so through all that, right, so Brittany has been like, oh, okay, maybe I'm gonna step more into conscious monogamy. I kind of went into I've expanded in all these ways to really support Brittany in being the fullness of herself, connecting with other people, being herself out in the world. And I've been doing that too, and that feels really good for me. Yeah. And so not necessarily wanting to have another partner or partners, but to feel free in my expression in the world.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, which I think is something that we've in hindsight always united on.
Yeah.
I think we've always been really attracted to each other because of our freedom of expression and the lights that we are in the world.
Yeah.
And really seeing each other at ecstatic dance in the very beginning, there was such a wow, we're both just free beings at play here.
Yes.
yeah, so what came next? So I, at some point, which feels like about like last summer, I had a big shift internally. I felt Bridgette saying, and I felt her energy shift in a way that was like, this isn't working for me anymore. Mm-hmm. And I felt you really clear on that, which was helpful for me, because what had happened for me internally a lot is I would hear you saying, I love and support you, and also like this is hard, like it's not fully working. But you were never saying like, Brittany, I want you to be different.
Totally. So what wasn't working? Like, I loved you, I loved supporting you, I loved all that I had expanded into, but the way we were navigating time, right? Like, you had another partner, we had a child, so there were things I wanted to experience in partnership. Just travel, have a few days together, like simple things, right? Like, I just was feeling like so many nutrients were not being met for me while I was putting so much into our container, and just feeling like I wasn't receiving what I needed. So came to this conclusion that, hey, Brittany, I love you, I want to be here, but totally, I gotta do something different.
Yeah, and I felt a real energetic shift from you, which I think was really important and powerful for both of us. And I sort of had my own things coming through at that time, which was realizing I really want to be in partnership with this being. And internally, I needed to go to the places that I had feared. I needed to go to like, well, would I want that even if it was like just us in partnership and we weren't exploring connection outside of one another? And I don't think that was necessarily totally based in the truth of like what would come to be with us or what was alive, but I needed to go there to feel like I can be with my fears and I can say yes. Kind of like you had, I can be with like what I'm like
most afraid of.
Yeah, and say yes. And so that was really powerful for me. And when I said yes to that, and I just kind of like all of me came online here, and dynamics with Connor totally shifted, which had been shifting a lot over time. But I remember this conversation like saying like, oh, I think I need to like really put Bridgette in this like primary partnership role, like for the world. Like, it was already like, that's clearly how I'm operating, that's what's going on, but there are these like energetic threads that still need to be cleared, and there's some things that need to be like solidified. And for me, I kind of ended up going totally, like not totally, but like quite a bit to the other side of like, okay, I'm here now, Bridgette, like let's do it. Like, all these feelings of being in love and being so lit up around the resonance that I had experienced with Bridgette, and like what it felt like to come together in the beginning, and kind of never really having that like, you fall in love and then you just like bask in that love with the person. You just like make love for days and hours and spend like nights together, and like we didn't have that. So it was like I had brought all of those feelings with me through all the years, and I was just like, Bridgette, I'm here, like I know you've said you wanted this, and like let's go all in. And my energy of it, and like some of the undertones of what I was kind of thinking it was going to be, what I felt from Bridgette was like, hey, that's like, I'm not there anymore. Like, that's not what I'm not there anymore. Yeah. But it wasn't so clear that that's what it was. Like, what it showed up as maybe was more like, that's a lot right now, like I need some time, it can't just be all of a sudden like you're here and now I'm supposed to like whatever. And so in the beginning, when that shift happened, it was like, I think like a little, maybe just like our we hadn't settled into a new space yet, and my system felt confused at times. And it really took me, I think I went through like a 1.5-year cycle of like really being in like not fully understanding what was happening, and having to come to terms with like, oh, I went all the way over here, thought we were going to meet here, almost kind of like having to grieve that. Just like I had to grieve over here, I had to grieve over here. And I imagine you had your own process with these things to finally come back into balance in the middle and be like, okay, well, like aside from all that, who am I? And like, what do I want to exist as? And how do I want to be in the world? And now that we've set ourselves up for the most amazing relationship ever, where we can be all of ourselves, what even feels true for me? Like, what do I want in partnership? What types of time, energy, connection, commitments do I want to be saying yes to with another being with you? And then what else, like, do I need to be exploring and like making sure you know and I know, like, I also need to put energy into like myself in these other ways.
Yeah. I love all this. I love that we started on these opposite sides and kind of switched, and that we have gotten to have these different perspectives, and then to get to say, like, well, what is important to us together as a unit, right? We both kind of like grew to meet the other person on the other side, right? Expanded into all these ways. And now we've kind of come to this balance point of like, hey, what feels really good for us together as a unit? And what we've come to feels so beautiful for me. It feels like truth. It feels like maybe the truth that we've always felt within the other person, right? Like that moment, that first time we were like, wow,
I see you.
Yeah, this feels really good. This attraction, this draw.
Yeah.
I think what we are existing in now was always the pulse of that. And that we had this long, intense journey of going through a lot to be here. And I'm so grateful that we did go through all that, because like I feel so free and expanded. I feel like, wow, I feel so confident in my voice and my needs and my system, and making sure like I'm taking care of my system and I'm communicating that with you. And also that I've expanded into, yes, personal freedom, but in a way that feels like I get to share all of myself with you and be seen and loved and celebrated and met in that. But that in the center of that personal freedom is this like solid union, this like union that we've created together. So it feels like I'm receiving both. I'm receiving like this sacred partnership and this like the autonomy of personal freedom. And I think that's the draw for me of like an open relationship. It's not necessarily like, oh, I want to go connect with other people, but it's like, I want to be able to share myself with you.
I love that.
I want to be able to be loved for all that I am. And just be able to bring that here. And that it's okay. Because I think a lot of partnerships, okay, let's just use this as an example. Okay, we're in a monogamous relationship, but I've grown and I've expanded and I've maybe learned some things about myself, and I'm wanting to bring that here, but we have this container that says that's not okay. And so then I don't bring it here, and then I act on that desire in a way that doesn't actually feel like what I want, because what I actually wanted was to feel safe to bring myself to my partnership.
And can you give an example for people who are just like, okay, I love this, but like, can you guys get specific on like, what could something like that look like? What is a desire that could come up for someone in a partnership?
Yeah, maybe I'm like having sexual fantasies and I want to share that with you, but I don't, because I'm afraid that it's going to rock our container. It's like a no for you, or that'll bring up too much for you. So then I suppress my desire. It gets weird in my system, and then I act it out in a way that doesn't actually feel good. Then I keep it a secret. Then my relationship container is troubled. And then I'm not in integrity here.
Yeah, I think another way this can show up is like, there is an attraction. There's like, oh, cool, there's this being, I felt this spark. I can't know what that spark is. Maybe it's like, oh, it feels good to be appreciated in the world and be seen. And I love that. And just getting to really like own that and like share with you and like, how good does that feel?
Yeah.
Everybody loves that.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's like, yeah, there's that and there is more. Like, there's this sexual thing between us that we want to explore. And like, I want to be a part of that. And I also, you know, I think for us and what feels alive now, it's like, I want to be a part of that. And I also like, I really love having us in the center as like this is primary, there's an amount of time and energy we want to invest here. I'm not trying to like take away from that. I really just want to add to that. And also this is feeling important. So maybe that's the piece. And for people who might be thinking like, but yeah, but like when does that become something else? And I think this is the piece that is like scary for people about not having necessarily a definition or a container. Or I know for me why I have in the past been so heavily relationship anarchist, because I wanted my system to always know like I am always free and this other being is always free. So don't get like attached in a way. But we do, like we naturally are going to form these bonds. And what I sense is true for us, what I can speak for is true for me, is this feels really right for me. I feel really excited. Like I'm just naturally wanting to show up every day and like pour energy into us and into myself and into Ilya and like our relationship and our family. And if that shifts in any way, I'll talk to you about it. And it wouldn't be like it shifts overnight because I met someone else. What I noticed is like when something does feel like it comes out of nowhere, there's been a lot of underlying stuff for a while.
It hasn't been talked about, or it hasn't felt safe to be talked about.
Or there's ways that we haven't felt met, and then it's like, yeah.
I want to name something because this has come up for me is like, all my other relationships have been monogamous, right? And so this one, I have felt safe to be like, oh, I do have an attraction for someone else and I can share that with you. And I noticed in the past, because I didn't share that desire, right, it really built up into something in my mind. Like, oh, I can't be this. I can't be all of myself, right? And then it got to like, maybe it was a simple thing where I just felt this attraction with this person. I felt seen or I felt celebrated or whatever. But then I turned it into a sexual thing, maybe even when it wasn't, because I felt like I couldn't. But with you, when that has happened and I bring that and I'm like, hey, this thing feels alive, most of the time that sexual energy dissipates because what I actually wanted is just to feel free.
Totally.
Which is cool. It could be both. It could be either. It could be or. But for me, the piece has been, I want to feel safe to talk, to feel free. Yeah, to express myself.
Yeah, I love this. Yeah, and I think what happens a lot of the time is, like, I notice that I've met a lot of people through poly life and poly coaching, and everybody I know who has felt like they are very poly at some point has shifted into more of a structure where they have a main person. Because I think not everybody, I'm sure there are outliers, but I think in general we like having a person that we feel special to, that is special to us, that we're growing alongside of in a way that feels sacred to us. And I think when you have a partner that you can really grow alongside of and expand alongside of long term, you're able to have these open relationships where, like, yeah, there's an attraction, maybe there's an experience, maybe there's a dance, maybe there's like a thing going on for some time, but then like it all kind of like it is what it is, and it's beautiful for what it is, and it's also very different than like this center column of like energy and flow. And when that partnership isn't as nourishing as it needs to be, maybe like you're not able to meet each other's needs on a regular basis, maybe you're different, maybe the ways you're wanting to grow are different, maybe one person really prioritizes personal growth and one person really prioritizes business or something else, then one of those things can come in and end up being your new partnership. And I see people like doing polyamory long term where like they move from primary partner to primary partner and have other partnerships on the side, because that's really like, they do like having that person. And it's fun for me to get to celebrate the resonance of us, to really celebrate that I've always felt this epic connection potential, so much resonance in so many areas. And I feel like I've just oriented, like we're in right relationship. Yeah. So I've oriented to this properly, and now I get to really celebrate it. And Does that shift someday? Who knows?
Right.
You know, we can't ever know. And that feels deeply true. And putting a label on our relationship or trying to put a container around it in a certain way wouldn't change that. And I think the best way to feel really safe in a partnership like this that is open, that we are open to whatever is coming into our lives, is to just stay really deeply in connection and communication with yourself and with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that we've built that foundation of safety to express and be held and be seen, and also that it sometimes triggers us.
Yeah.
And that's great. That's great. Like, to be triggered, for me, I've learned, is like an invitation to heal something, and that feels really beautiful. And to be in a partnership where I can feel a trigger and share and be held. Wow. Okay. I've moved through that.
Yeah.
We've moved through so many triggers together.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It feels so good to be here and to be in right relationships, synced up together, on the same page, in open communication, and to have such a solid partnership. Yeah. So that's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing.
And it feels really good.
Yeah, I love it. I love you.
I love you. Yeah.
I would love to hear any questions you have from that, etc. about that or about our lives. I'm excited to share more here.
Yeah. Okay. Wishing you a beautiful day.